Okay, today's Q&A is about vinegar, and the question is there anything I need to know about vinegar? And is maybe always kosher because it's made from corn or apples or other simple things like that? The answer is like this. The way you make vinegar is you take alcohol and you ferment it to create vinegar. And to do that, you could start from any alcohol that you like to. One obvious way to get alcohol is from wine. And the rule is, of course, the din is that if wine is made from, unless wine is made special by Shomer Shabbos, etc., it's going to be usher as stam yayin. So wine vinegar or balsamic vinegar, which is a type of wine vinegar. So wine vinegar requires hashgacha to make sure that the wine was kosher, the wine going in was kosher. Okay. Now, just an interesting little point here is that if you make vinegar from wine that's usher from stam yayin, it stays usher. But if you take kosher wine and you turn it into vinegar, then once it became vinegar, it will not become stam yayin, even if someone who's not Shomer Shabbos touches it later on. Okay, now, what about malt vinegar or apple cider vinegar, which are made from, the malt vinegar is made from barley and the apple cider vinegar is made from apples. And both of those, you make like a wine-ish type thing out of it, and then you make it into vinegar. So they don't have any wine or grape juice in them. So from the ingredient perspective, no problem. There's no kashrus issues from the ingredient side of it. However, almost every company that makes vinegar also makes wine vinegar and uses the same equipment for processing both of them. And therefore, because the wine vinegar, the apple cider or the malt vinegar or whatever might be made on the same equipment as the wine vinegar, is a reason you need to have hashgacha in order to make sure there's no carryover from the non-kosher vinegar to the kosher vinegar. Now, this concern of carryover and transfer of tam is that much more serious for vinegar, because vinegar is a davar charif, meaning it's sharp or pungent. And therefore, even if the equipment would be Eina Binyamin, it hadn't been used for 24 hours, it could still affect the status of the kosher product being made on it. So it's you have to be particularly careful about the equipment in a vinegar plant. Now, all the vinegars we spoke about till now, that was wine vinegar and malt vinegar and apple cider vinegar, are made from one specific thing. In the cases where it was either grapes, like wine, barley, or apples. Now, there's another product, which is called white distilled vinegar. And that's made as follows. You make alcohol, and then what you do, you make alcohol out of anything, any grain or sugar or fruit or whatever you want to. And then you concentrate that alcohol using a process called distillation. And you distill it to the point that instead of being alcohol at whatever percent, you get it to be 95% pure alcohol, 95% alcohol. It's colorless, and it's called grain neutral spirits at that point because it's so concentrated that you don't even have any carryover of taste from the original grain. So it's grain neutral, meaning you can't tell which grain it came from because it doesn't taste different because it came from this rather than that. In other words, when you have malt vinegar and apple cider vinegar, they taste different because of the barley or the apple that they came from. But here, it's grain neutral. You can't tell at all where it came from. Now, then you take this 95% alcohol, that's called white and you ferment, you water it down, and then you ferment it. And so it's called white distilled vinegar because it's vinegar it's white, meaning clear, and it's distilled, it was made from a distilled alcohol. And that's what we know of as white distilled vinegar. The Kashrus concerns with it is, first of all, I have 4 ideas here. One is there's a small chance it was made from wine or grape juice. It could be made on equipment that was shared with wine vinegar. Third is you have to add nutrients in. Since you distill it and there's nothing in there except for alcohol, you have to add nutrients to make up for what was lost during distillation. Those could be not kosher. And go figure, the fourth one is the water that you use to dilute the alcohol before you ferment it might be a byproduct of the wine and vinegar being made in the same factory. So those are 4 reasons why white distilled vinegar needs hashgacha. Now, all kinds of vinegar are sensitive for Pesach. The simplest reason is because the alcohol might be made from that you start the thing that you started from to make the alcohol, which eventually turns into vinegar, might be chametz or kitnius. Another thing is that the equipment that you produce it on, and the nutrients and the yeast that you use to make the alcohol could all be not kosher Pesach. And in talking like this, when thinking from that perspective, from the Pesach perspective, malt vinegar is obviously chametz; it's made from barley. But in the United States, most other vinegars are produced are probably or almost for sure made from kidneys. So if you have a question of whether you should keep your vinegar or something made with vinegar over Pesach, or you should sell it or discard it, you might want to talk to your Rav about that, because the chances are that it's made from the things that the ingredients that are in there are not chametz. That they might be just kidneys, but they're pretty sure that they're not chametz. One last thing is that vinegar is used in all types of condiments like ketchup and mustard and pickles. And since, as I mentioned, vinegar is sensitive, kosher sensitive for year-round and for Pesach, all those items that contain vinegar should only be used if they have hashgacha.